Srimad Bhakti Madhav Puri Maharaj is one of the main scientist disciples of Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is one of the main members of original founding members of Bhaktivedanta Institute. And Srila Prabhupada instructed him to philosophically develop the concept of matter comes from life and preach to the scientist. And Maharaj could preach to great famous Nobel scientist George Wald and bring him to this line of devotion. And Maharaj spent many years also in India, preached, and under the guidance of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he got much nourishment, and he was being trained in the Hegelian philosophy. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj used to say to Sripad Puri Maharaj, "I am like you," many times. And then Srila Sripad Puri Maharaj could not understand why Maharaj is saying like that. He asked to his secretary, why Srila Sridhar Maharaj says like that always? What is the meaning of that? Then Srila Sridhar Maharaj told, that means he is accepted. So we are not qualified to glorify the great Vaishnavas, but Sripad Puri Maharaj is giving us nourishment for many years. We are very much grateful to him, and we humbly request if Maharaj can say some few words. That is our great fortune.
Hey Krishna, can you hear me?
Dandavat Maharaj.
Dandavat. First, I want to offer my humble Dandavat pranams to Srila Bhakti Nirmala Chai Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Pavan Janardhan Maharaj, to Bhakti Vigyan Muni Maharaj, Bhakti Niskam Shanta Maharaj, all the Maharajas, and all the Prabhus, all the devotees, all the servitors of Lord Jagannath. I just say a few words. We had so many discussions of all the facets of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught by Srila Prabhupada in his books, and the discussions and lectures of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Sindhu Govinda Maharaj, and all the devotees, all the books of the Vaishnava Acharyas, Vaishnava devotees. I only want to give a very concise, very short, what my understanding is of who Mahaprabhu is and his identity and why he came to this world, why he incarnated, and the difference that he is showing us from all the other incarnations of Krishna. So Mahaprabhu came to reveal a new understanding. According to my conception, he came to reveal a new understanding of the Absolute. And he called that, in which difference was the same as identity in the Absolute. Difference and identity were the same in the Absolute. And he called that Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. Just like the absolute value of +1 and the absolute value of -1, they are both 1. If you take the absolute value of +1 and the absolute value of -1, because they are absolute, they are both 1 in mathematics. Although +1 and -1 are opposite, they become identical in the Absolute. So this inclusion of difference in the Absolute is generally not recognized. How can difference and identity both be there in the Absolute? They're contradictory. And the Absolute must be all one. Advaya Gyan, it is called. Non-different knowledge. So this inclusion of difference in the Absolute is also found in many Asian philosophies, like the Yin Yang of China. Yin and Yang are both opposite like positive and negative. Yet somehow they are balanced in the Asian mind. So opposites play an important role in harmonizing whatever is organic or living as a whole, whereas the predominance of one side can destroy the actual living or organic whole. So it is necessary in living organism, life, and death. They both play a role in maintaining the organism. It's called anabolism and catabolism in biology. Anabolism means building up, and catabolism means tearing down. And both play a role, a very important role, in maintaining life, called metabolism. So there are many places in our everyday language where you find identity and difference. For instance, and we can say all cows are mammals. And at the same time, not all mammals are cows. So here we have a simultaneously identity and difference. Cows are identical with mammals, but difference between mammals and cows also exists. Not all mammals are cows. All cows are mammals, but not all mammals are cows. So there is difference and there is identity, both existing at the same time. Every moment of time is and is not now, because time is always moving. Whenever there is movement, the point at which the movement is occurring must have a contradiction within it. It must be and not be at the same time. Being and non-being are there, existing at the point at which the movement is traced. So all these examples are there of identity, being there and not there, is and is not, being and not being. Contradictions. Being is not the same as not being. In fact, they contradict, oppose each other. Yet both must be present at the same time for there to be any kind of movement. Zeno had his paradoxes in which he tried to point this out, how the impossible is there and the impossible becomes possible in the living world, in the moving world. And then in India we have Shankaracharya. He taught oneness. Madhvacharya taught difference. Ramanujacharya taught qualified oneness, or oneness with qualities, oneness with different qualities. And Mahaprabhu, he came to synthesize all these different conceptions of the acharyas with his philosophy of inconceivable simultaneous oneness and difference. That was his function. He didn't come to contradict any of them, but to show how they can all be brought together in a harmonious understanding of the Sachintya Veda Veda Tattva. And he was a great synthesizer who tried to unite all the sampradayas together, even Buddhists and Muslims. We find in the Chaitanya Charitamrita of Śrī Krishna's Kaviraj, that he preached to everyone and tried to gather them together in the understanding of how to worship God, love God. He wanted to unite also humanity, mankind with God, in loving service or bhakti yoga. Not only was he trying to unite all of humanity in one religion, but he was also trying to unite humanity with God in bhakti yoga, the practice of loving service of the Supreme Lord. So here we find his contribution, a wonderful contribution to the modern world, which is also practical for today. If we consider this principle of opposites in the absolute, that there are opposites in the absolute, Bhaktisiddhanta, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I think expresses most beautifully in his idea of the Gaudiya line of Vaishnavism by calling those moieties. He called them moieties. Moieties means the whole, a half of a whole, half a part, a half of a whole, basically. And and he said in the absolute there are two halves, and he called these halves predominated and predominating. There's a predominating half and a predominated half. And by that, what did he mean? He said, so if we think of a king means we must also think of his kingdom and his subjects. There's no such thing as a king on his own. No, not king. Without his kingdom, without his subjects, he becomes a king in name only. So both are there, the king and what he is king of, what he rules over. They must both be there. If only the ruled are there without the king, then what is the meaning of that rule? If only the king is there without anything to rule over, then what is the meaning of his rulership? So similarly, the concept of the Lord loses its significance if that over which he is Lord does not exist. In the same way, what is the meaning of Krishna? Without Vrindavan, the cows, the Brajavasis, without Devaki, Vasudeva, or the Pandavas, and so forth. If we take away one side, the other side also vanishes. So they are essential to each other. And this Mahaprabhu taught. He taught that this unity of the predominator and predominated is essential for the absolute. We don't need that. Before Mahaprabhu appeared, Krishna was known in his absolute predominating role as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Adi Purusha, the origin of all. Thus we find in the Bhagavad Gita, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo Matas Sarvam Pravartate Iti Madhva Bhajanti Mam Buddha Bhava Samanvita. Here, Krishna in his predominating role is clearly the object of our worship. Or Brahmano Pratistaham, even he says that even Brahman is resting upon me, I am supporting even Brahman, the great Brahman, absolute itself, is supported by me. And then Sarvadharmam Padajaja, Mam Ekam Sharanam Braja. All must surrender to me. You're all under, to be under my protection. And in the Bhagavatam, Janmadasya Tonvayadi Taratasya Cheshu Abhigyasvarat. This Abhigyasvarat means the independent, supreme knower. That is Krishna. All these ways, Krishna is presented to us in his predominating position. Lord Jagannath even is called the master. Nath means the master of the world, Jagat. So all the incarnations of Krishna came to defeat the demons and save the devotees. Paritranaya sarunam vinashaya chaduskritam. So the Lord was always referenced in this predominating feature of the absolute truth. Even in Vrindavan, he is known as the enjoyer of the gopis and the cows, Govinda. But it was in the incarnation of Mahaprabhu, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, that he first came as a predominated moiety of the absolute. Not as Krishna, but as his own Krishna conscious devotee. His name, Krishna Chaitanya, means Krishna consciousness. He came as Krishna consciousness. That is the role of, not of the Supreme Person, but of the Krishna conscious devotee. And the supreme absolute predominated portion of the absolute in the spiritual realm is known as Sri Radhika, the supreme form of Krishna consciousness. And to know and taste her ecstasy of love for Krishna. Mahaprabhu incarnates in her mood to relish the mood of Krishna consciousness she possesses. So that incarnation of Krishna is known as both Radha and Krishna. And this was the unique position of Mahaprabhu, that he incarnated in that form. So he shows us the importance of worshiping and serving Radha and her servitors as much as we may worship Krishna. Janardana Maharaj mentioned, Gopi Bharta Pada Kamalayor, Dasu Dasano Dasa. He came to worship the Radha and her servitors, not Krishna. So the predominated and the predominating absolute are not to be distinguished because they are not different. They are different, but they are not. They are both equally absolute. And that other portion of the absolute, the Radha predominated portion, that is as much to be worshipped as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped. This is very, very important because especially in this Kali Yuga, who understands what is God? And the whole conception of God has been practically lost. Men have become all sectarian. And God's conception is finished. No one can say what that is. And we cannot say even who is that. But fortunately, by Mahaprabhu's mercy, we can understand his devotee. His devotee, and we can find what's such a sadhu, such a saint, such a Vaishnava. Then we can maybe have some chance to do a little service, to have some connection, even we may, however fallen we may be, to offer some bhog, something to the devotee, some respect even within our mind and within our heart. At least in this way we can have some connection, and that connection is also with the Absolute. As much as we can have connection with Krishna, we can have connection with his devotee and have the same connection with the Absolute in that way. So it's interesting, I always think of how Mahaprabhu appeared at the same time as the Renaissance was occurring in the West. Renaissance occurred in the 16th century. And Mahaprabhu's appearance in the 15th and 16th century was also going on at the same time. And the Renaissance was also concerned with its focus being changed from God to humanity. Whole Renaissance was the change from the church-dominated conception of the Absolute of God and to the human-centered conception of how to proceed in life. That change was noted. Many scholars also noted that same change occurred with Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu showed the importance of the human side of divinity, the predominated portion, and how that must be properly conceived also in relationship to God. Of course, the transcendental nature of Mahaprabhu's teachings are nothing compared, are so far superior and transcendental and divine compared to what was understood in the West. But a similar spirit can be found throughout the world, occurring simultaneously in Mahaprabhu's appearance and in the Western Renaissance. I find that to be the case. And in Hegel conception, the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times, there is a spirit that is inhabiting the whole of creation, called the zeitgeist, at any moment. And when that moves, everything moves accordingly. So the role of consciousness, that is also taking hold in the West with Descartes and Kant, and especially with modern science. It's all based upon the conception of consciousness. While the consciousness of Krishna was being emphasized by Mahaprabhu, Krishna Chaitanya. Again, this idea of consciousness became very prominent with Mahaprabhu and also in Western countries. So there is great and impractical importance of Mahaprabhu's teachings even today. We are thankful for the important teaching of the great acharyas and the sincerity of the true devotees who maintain and inspire the continuation and promotion of these vital and unifying life teachings. And basically that's all I wanted to say, a very simple way. My humble Dandavats. Thank you, Prabhus, for listening. Maharaj, Jai. Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Bhakti Rakshata Dev Goswami Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Nirmalacharya Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Bhavanjanardhan Maharaj, all the devotees ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
Jai. Sripad Bhakti Madhav Puri Maharaj ki Jai. Thank you very much, Sripad Bhakti Madhav Puri Maharaj, for your nice deliberation about this nice conception about predominated and predominating. Is there any questions from the audience? If there anything anybody wants to ask or discuss?
Maharaj, I have one comment. I feel that Puri Maharaj's presentation perfectly presents the theme, which is addressed as Śrī Jagannāth and Śrī Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Sri Krishna's two different moods of union and separation. So by presenting this Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva philosophy and how the Lord has to be known as both as the predominating Lord, which we could say is also Lord Jagannath, and we could say the predominated Lord, the worshiper, and the servant of the Lord, Mahaprabhu. I feel that Puri Maharaj, his presentation, very nice presentation, has answered this question, or not question, but has presented this topic of Śrī Jagannāth and Śrī Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Sri Krishna's two different moods of union and separation. That was my feeling when he was speaking.
Can I say something, Maharaj?
Yes, Muni Maharaj, you can ask.
Today, while preparing for my talk for tomorrow, I was coming across so many of the things which you are telling. And it was from the book of Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur. And he uses a very specific term for what you were trying to describe in Bengali. It is called Virod Avichintya Virod Bhanjika Shakti. This power of Krishna, this inconceivable power of Krishna, or the Lord, to harmonize, this is Mahaprabhu's teachings, to harmonize all the different apparently opposite dharmas. Like Krishna is deity, is situated in one place, but at the same time Krishna is everywhere by his inconceivable potency. Like this, so many other opposing qualities Krishna is able to harmonize. But only thing is that the living entities are unable to conceive this, because the activity and the power of the Supreme Lord is superior to that of the living entities. So it was very nice presentation, Maharaj. I think it was very beautifully how you described everything. If you would like to say something on this, what Srila Saraswati Thakur himself was describing this as teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It came out completely like spontaneous in your presentation. So we are very happy and satisfied to hear your presentation. Thank you, Maharaj.
Your grace, Maharaj.
Maharaj Dandas Maharaj. Vishwa here from Bangalore.
Vishwajit Prabhu, yes. Why is your name Alex?
Joined from the Alex ID, Zoom ID, I think.
I see.
Oh, sorry, Maharaj.
Okay.
Maharaj, like Shikshashtakam is the essence of Mahaprabhu's teaching, Maharaj. Correct, Maharaj. So I was trying to understand it, like the Guru, the mention of Guru, like Guru Parampara, like how it is there within Shikshashtakam.
How it is what?
How it is present within Shikshashtakam, Maharaj.
Guru Parampara. Mahaprabhu is telling, he is the servant. As we said, Gopi Bhartak Pada Kamalayor, Dasu Dasana Dasa. So our position is like that, predominated. Even the predominated has within it a hierarchy of predomination. So Krishna explained in the Bhagavad Gita, no, that we must approach a spiritual master. Tadvidi, paripratena, pariprastena sevaya. These things, paripratena means humbly approaching. Pariprasna, and humbly inquiring, and seva. And it's taught in the Bhagavad Gita as the method of understanding the Absolute. So this is the meaning of parampara also, that each learns from the other in a descending line. So the spirit of service, of being the predominated, that is very important. Humility. Mahaprabhu also taught that. Janadapi sanichena tarodapi sishna mani manadena. This humility is also taught there. And tolerance and giving respect and honor to others. So in many places, in Mahaprabhu's teaching and in his heart, he was teaching this principle of Guru Parampara. No? Do you think so? Is it correct?
Thank you, Maharaj. It explains a lot. Thank you very much.
Is there any other questions anybody have? Can take one more.
Some another program I have to go downstairs. Please forgive my offense. I want to leave now.
Maharaj, Dandavat Srila Bhakti Nirmala Acharya Maharaj, Jayam Vishnupad, Paramahansa Parivar Jagat Guru, Srila Bhakti Nirmala Acharya Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Thank you very much, Maharaj, for your holy association, your blessing, your encouragement.
Thank you so much.
Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Srila Acharya Maharaj.
Dandavat
Pranam Gurudev. Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat
Guruji.
So if there is any questions, then we can take. Otherwise, we are going to conclude today's session here.